According to General Hospital spoilers, Michael Corinthos may startle Willow Tate with 7 words. Will he accuse Daisy Gilmore of stalking her? Michael isn't 100% confident Willow was behind the strange episodes involving Daisy, but she's his top suspect. Despite the lack of concrete evidence, Michael believes Willow was responsible for all of the Daisy turmoil. Of course, GH fans know Willow was the one who used Daisy to scare Sasha Gilmore Corbin. Michael is currently separated from his youngest daughter after Willow drove a traumatized Sasha out of town with Daisy. Although Michael hasn't told Willow about his thoughts yet, he may eventually reveal his theory. Michael isn't particularly good at regulating his temper, as seen by the way he lost his cool with Drew Kane and decked him after being provoked. If Willow tries to rile Michael up again, he may lose control and reveal his thoughts. It's easy to envision Michael confronting Willow and using her secret to threaten her. Michael may have another outburst directed at Willow and say those 7 bombshell words we hinted at. I know you targeted Daisy and Sasha. Willow is unaware that Michael is on to her at this point, so she will be taken aback if he makes that charge. Even if Willow denies it, Michael may threaten that if he can confirm the baby stalker news, he would cause issue for her. Dante Falconeri is already working on obtaining neighboring traffic camera footage to see whether Willow was present at the scene of the incident. Michael has the potential to gather enough evidence to bring Willow down, so he may threaten her with an accusation and a vengeful promise at some point. According to General Hospital spoilers, Willow faces additional challenges and may need to make some strategic changes prior to the visitation hearing, so stay tuned. General Hospital spoilers for Thursday, August 21st, predict that Michael Corinthos and Sonny Corinthos will win, while Martin Gray makes a nasty play. Brooke Lynn Quartermaine will also receive a grave warning. Here's what GH viewers may expect. For starters, Martin will play hardball with Drew Kane, insisting that he will only sign his statement if Drew ends the insurance fraud probe. Martin may say that there is nothing he can do for Drew because it is too late to put a stop to it. Meanwhile, ADA Justine Turner will appear to be ready to pass the popcorn and take in the Drew drama. Turner and Sonny may bond over Drew's upcoming roadblock. Drew can't charge Michael with assault without Martin's testimony, which could explain why Michael and Sonny will have an advantage on Thursday's show. It sounds like Sonny and Michael will consider this a victory. Stella Henry, on the other hand, will feel defeated after opening up to Curtis Ashford. Curtis will be furious by Drew's probe into Stella, but Stella will believe there is nothing they can do about it. Nonetheless, Curtis will prepare to hit back. Drew's phony ceasefire has already been uncovered, so Curtis will undoubtedly want to unleash his anger. When Molly Lansing Davis runs into Cody Bell, she'll ask for his advice as an expert on anything. Molly may consult Cody for research because the book she is writing contains a cowboy character. Of course, Cody's melancholy demeanor could be attributed to Maxie Jones' medical concerns. Molly may console Cody and eventually realize she can't fight her affections for him after all. Rick Lansing will spend time with Elizabeth Baldwin at the Metro Court Pool, where she will surprise him by expressing her thanks for something. Ava Jerome will also end up in the pool with Nina Reeves, so she may be upset by Rick and Elizabeth's continued reconnection. Nina swears Ava to silence after learning that she will obtain startling facts. Nina is paying Rick to represent Willow Tate without her knowledge, thus Ava's discovery may be related to that, and whatever legal strategy is in the works. Elizabeth was already dubious of Rick working for Willow pro bono, so we'll see if Ava exposes Nina's large payout sooner or later. Lulu Spencer and Liesl Obrecht will chat about old wounds at Maxie's house, but they may also explore a new beginning for Rocco Falconeri. Liesl has been showing Lulu a softer and more helpful version of herself, so there may be some hope for peace or at least tolerance. Tracy Quartermaine of the Quartermaine Stables will offer some critical advice for Brooke Lynn. You have to be there or you will never forgive yourself. Tracy advises Brooke Lynn in Thursday's preview clip. Tracy may believe it's a bad idea for Brooke Lynn to skip Donna Corinthos' forthcoming birthday celebration in order to avoid Giovanni Gio Palmieri. This could be Brooke Lynn's chance to finally make a breakthrough with Gio, but it won't happen unless she shows there. Even if Brooke Lynn fails, it is better than not trying at all. According to General Hospital teasers, Tracy will provide some counsel, so keep an eye out for Brooke Lynn's reply. Michael strode restlessly across the living room floor, his hands deep in his pockets, his mind racing with concern. He had been harboring this suspicion for days. and it was eating him alive. Willow sat curled up on the couch, experiencing his stress but not knowing why. Her lovely green eyes scoured his face for any clues as to what was bothering him, but Michael avoided her stare. The silence between them felt thicker than usual, and she could not bear it any longer. "Michael," she whispered softly, placing her teacup on the table. "What is going on? You have been distracted for days. Please just talk to me." He froze, inhaling sharply, as if her question gave him permission to finally say what had been bothering him since he overheard that conversation at the Metro Court. But even as he opened his mouth, he was overcome with reluctance. He was aware of the potential consequences of this charge. He was aware of how fragile their relationship had just become, and the last thing he wanted was to damage the tiny piece of serenity they'd managed to restore. But he couldn't keep quiet any longer. "It's Daisy," he said suddenly, his voice shaking with emotion. "I think she's stalking you, Willow." Willow blinked, perplexed, her brows knitting together. "Daisy? Michael, what exactly are you talking about?" "Daisy left Port Charles several months ago. I haven't heard anything from her since." Michael's jaw tightened. "That's what she wants you to think." He stepped closer, stooping down in front of her to look her in the eyes. "Willow, I overheard something. I wasn't supposed to listen in, but I did overhear Drew and someone else at the Metro Court bar. Daisy's name came up, and from what I can tell, she's been back in town for at least 2 weeks. Not only that," he paused, dropping his voice, "I believe she has been following you." Willow's breath seized in her throat, a shiver running up her spine despite the room's warmth. "Michael, that doesn't make sense," she stated slowly to ground herself. "Daisy is past all of that. After everything that happened with Shiloh and the cult, she vowed to change her life. We both saw how much she wanted to change." "I believed her too," Michael admitted, running his hand through his hair. "But what if it wasn't true? What if she has been holding on to anything all these time? What if she blames you for how things turned out?" Willow shook her head gently, as if to brush off his comments. "Who blames me? For what?" "For leaving her behind," Michael murmured quietly, "for escaping when she didn't. You were the one who came out of Dawn of Day. You were the person who created a new life. Daisy was left to pick up the shards of what she thought she believed in. Willow, such resentment does not go away on its own. And if she's been watching you, if she's been following you—" "Michael, stop." Her voice was harsher than she meant, yet her hands trembled slightly as she clenched them in her lap. "You're scaring me." He grabbed her hands and embraced them in his own. "I apologize. That isn't what I desire. But I want you to take this seriously. I've noticed someone near the hospital parking lot twice this week, wearing a hooded sweatshirt and keeping their head down. And when I attempted to get a closer look, they vanished. It might have been anyone, but Willow, the timing is off." Willow paced toward the window, her mind racing with the possibility of Daisy's return. Memories from years ago flooded back. The chanting, the manipulation, the way Daisy hovered around her back when she was still under Shiloh's influence. Daisy, even with her pleasant grin and soothing voice, had a disturbing quality. Willow had always wanted to believe Daisy was just another victim, like her, trying to figure her way out. But what if she'd been wrong? "What if you are mistaken?" she finally asked, turning back to face him. "What if this is all paranoia, Michael? You've had a lot on your shoulders lately, the kids, Nina, Drew, and Sunny." Michael hesitated, his lips separating slightly, but remained silent at first. He wanted to believe it too. He just wanted to dismiss this as a misunderstanding. But deep inside, his instinct said otherwise. "I wish I was wrong," he muttered. "But I don't think I am." Willow crossed her arms and hugged herself, attempting to remain calm. "Well, what are you saying? That we have to look over our shoulders everywhere we go? Daisy seems to be waiting for something to happen." "I'm saying we need to be careful," Michael stated forcefully. "I am asking you to stay away from the hospital parking lot alone. When you take the kids to the park, I want you to bring someone with you. And if I'm not there, I'll ask Dex or Chase to keep an eye out." Willow glanced at him, stunned. "Dex? Chase? Michael, do you even hear yourself now? You're talking about assigning somebody to follow me around as if I'm under threat. Daisy's actions are not supported by evidence." Michael's patience dwindled as his rage boiled over. Do you want me to wait till there is proof? Do you want me to wait until something happens to you or your children before I take this seriously? His loud voice startled her, and she flinched, but before any of them could say anything else, the tension broke into stillness. Michael closed his eyes, trying to calm himself down. He couldn't lose her like way, not over a disagreement about Daisy. Willow's voice softened as she moved closer. I don't want to live in fear, Michael. We've gone through so much already. I want to believe we're secure now. I do too, he muttered, drawing her into his arms. More than anything. But even as he held her, his gaze shifted to the window, studying the shadows outside as if expecting to see someone observing. Hours later, as Willow was upstairs putting the children to bed, Michael sat alone at the kitchen table, going through his phone. He couldn't let it go. He searched Daisy's name on social media for any sign of her return. And then, buried deep in a tagged photo on a friend's page, he discovered it. A fuzzy photo from 2 nights earlier on the Port Charles boardwalk. There she was. Daisy Kwan. Hood pulled low, hands stuffed into her pockets, she stood off to the side, as if she didn't want to be spotted. His stomach sank. Michael downloaded the photo, his fingers quivering slightly, and forwarded it to Spinelli with the following message. Need a location trace. Urgent. By the time Willow returned, he had closed his phone and put on a calm face, but she was not deceived. She sat down next to him and reached for his hand. You discovered something, didn't you? Michael paused for a long minute before nodding. Yeah. Willow exhaled shakily and tightened her grip on his hand. A sense of discomfort surged over her, memories forcing their way to the top. Everything she had tried so hard to leave behind seemed closer than ever, threatening the life she had created. Following that, neither of them spoke again. But amid the silence, one thing became clear. Daisy was not gone. And no matter what she desired, she was not going to stay concealed forever. Daisy watched from a distance, her hood lowered, her gaze fixed on the Corinthos house. Her lips twisted into a tiny smile, and she muttered gently to herself, savoring the experience. Sonny, like always, remained unshaken. He sat across the room, reclined in a leather chair, a glass of bourbon in hand, his signature sneer on his lips. The faint light in the room caught the corners of his worn face, emphasizing the lines left by years of power struggles and treachery. To Sonny, this was just another day at work. Another enemy vanquished, another transaction completed. You did good, kid, he remarked, his voice low and gravelly, breaking the silence. Grayson didn't see it coming. Nobody ever does. Michael looked away from the window, his jaw clenched. He wanted to experience the same surge of triumph that his father did. Yet something gnawed at him. The deal had been too clean and perfect. In Port Charles, perfection was always associated with a price. Across town, Martin Gray was planning his next move. The lawyer's office contrasted sharply with ELQ's slick, modern headquarters. His desk was littered with files, coffee-stained legal pads, and a half-finished sandwich from the cafe down the street. Martin wasn't flashy, but he was a superb manipulator, with a mind full of schemes and secrets. What is his latest target? Michael and Sonny were celebrating the exact same agreement. Martin had been quietly working for Grayson behind the scenes, providing him with just enough damaging information to ensure that the Corinthos family took over. Why? Because Martin had his own plan, which went far beyond Grayson's petty desires. He sat back in his creaky chair, his fingers curled, and a slight smile formed on his lips. Corinthos' victory was a domino, skillfully tipped to kick off a chain reaction. And Martin was holding the next piece. Meanwhile, Brooklyn Quartermain paced the living room of the Quartermain home, her shoes clicking against the wooden floor. Her sharp eyes went to her phone every few seconds, as if she expected it to ring with responses. She'd been investigating Martin's recent activities, and what she discovered made her stomach turn. Brooklyn was not the kind to back down from a fight. After all, she had grown up in the Quartermain family's snake pit. But this was different. Martin's actions were not only questionable, but also dangerous. She'd seen the evidence. Shell businesses, offshore accounts, and a series of cryptic letters pointing to far more than a typical corporate fight. Brooklyn had warned Michael earlier in the day, her voice low and intense. You and Sonny think you've won. But you're playing chess with a guy who's already flipped the board. Michael ignored her, too engrossed in the joy of victory to listen. But Brooke Lynn knew better. She'd seen Martin's eyes, a predator's glimmer, cold and calculated. Back at ELQ, Michael couldn't shake Brooke Lynn's warning, even as Sunny poured more cocktails. The office was quiet now, with the rest of the staff having left, leaving only the two of them to celebrate their victory. Or so Sunny believed. Michael's thoughts were elsewhere, reliving Brooke Lynn's words and how her voice cracked with passion. He had known her long enough to believe her intuition, even if he didn't always agree with her methods. She wasn't the type to spread false information. If she said Martin was trouble, she had a cause. Michael laid his drink down undisturbed and crossed the room to his desk, where he pulled up the Grayson deal files. Something was not adding up. The statistics were too tidy and the contracts were too tight. He'd seen enough of Sunny's deals to know that nothing ever went as easily. Sunny observed the change in his son's mood and moved forward, his gaze sharpening. "What's bothering you, Michael? We just closed the deal of the decade. You should be celebrating, not looking like you've lost your best friend." Michael paused, unsure how much to say. Sunny was not one for gut feelings or second-guessing. He saw uncertainty as weakness, and weakness as blood in the sea. But Michael could not shake his anxiety. "It's Brooke Lynn," he announced finally. "She thinks we missed something. Says Martin's got an angle we haven't seen." Sunny chuckled softly, dismissing the idea with a wave of his hand. "Brooke Lynn's always got a theory. She's a Quartermain, paranoia's in their DNA. Martin's a snake, sure, but he's not stupid enough to cross us." But Martin was exactly that kind of dumb, or rather, that kind of daring. In his dimly lit office, he was already putting the next phase of his plan into action. He'd spent months laying the groundwork, establishing a web of favors and obligations extending from Port Charles to New York City and beyond. The Corinthos' victory was merely bait, a gleaming distraction to keep their attention off the actual prize. Grayson was not Martin's client. Grayson was merely a pawn, a loudmouth with too much money and not enough judgment. The true player was someone else, whose name Martin had never mentioned to himself. He unlocked his laptop and typed a fast, encrypted message. Phase 1 complete. Corinthos took the bait. Proceed as planned. He pushed send and leaned back, his smile becoming stronger. The game had begun, and Port Charles was going to become a battlefield. Brooke Lynn was not waiting for Michael to come around. She'd realized long ago that sitting still got you nowhere in this town. She sneaked out of the mansion, car keys in hand, and drove to the docks, the one location she knew she could find answers. At this hour the shoreline was calm, with a strong smell of salt water and diesel in the air. She stopped outside a warehouse owned by one of Sunny's subsidiaries and waited, her gaze scouring the shadows. She'd received word from a contact at the Port Charles Police Department that a shipment was arriving tonight that was not on Sunny's books. If Martin had been engaged, the trail would have led here. Brooke Lynn wasn't naive. She knew digging about Sunny's operations would get her in trouble, but she also knew the consequences of remaining silent. Martin's plans were not solely financial in nature. It was personal. As she waited, her phone buzzed with a text from Michael. "Meet me at ELQ. Now." She paused, conflicted between following her instincts and answering his call. Michael wasn't one to convey urgent messages lightly, but the docs represented her best chance with hard evidence. She texted a short response, "Give me an hour," and put her phone away. The warehouse was dark, but a glimmer of movement attracted her attention. A man emerged from behind a stack of containers, moving with the quiet precision that signaled peril. Brooke Lynn's pulse increased, but she remained still, her palm resting on the pepper spray in her handbag. She wasn't armed like Sunny's men, but she wasn't unarmed either. Back at ELQ, Michael dug deeper, his fingers speeding across the computer as he cross-referenced the Grayson agreement with every database he could find. He wasn't a computer expert, but he'd learned enough from his mother, Carly, to know how to track down a money trail. And the route led somewhere dark. Shell corporations, phony accounts, and transactions that were channeled via half a dozen countries all point to Martin Gray. Michael's stomach twisted. Brooke Lynn had been correct. This was more than just a victory. It was a setup. He picked up his phone and called her again, but it went straight to voicemail. "Damn it, Brooke Lynn," he snarled before slamming the phone down. If she was out there looking for leads, she was stepping into a trap. Brooklyn's senses told her to leave the docks, but she couldn't do so. Not yet. The man she'd seen had vanished, but the subtle buzz of an approaching boat kept her fixed in place. She crouched behind a stack of barrels, her breath short, as the boat docked. Two men climbed out, their words quiet but audible in the still night air. Gray said it's all set, one of them explained. The shipment is clean, but the Corinthos children are starting to ask questions. Brooklyn's blood turned cold. They were chatting about Michael. She tried to hear more, but the men went out of sight, disappearing into the warehouse. She needed to get closer, but each step felt like a risk to her life. In the ELQ office, Sonny sensed Michael's discomfort. He stood, crossing the room to join his kid. "Talk to me, Michael. What's got you so scared?" Michael didn't glance up from the TV. "It's Martin. Brooklyn was right, he's playing us. I found transfers linked to him, accounts that don't add up. He's not working for Grayson. He's working for someone else." Sonny's expression clouded, his easy confidence gone. He'd underestimated Martin, and in his world, that was a mistake you didn't repeat. "Find Brooklyn," he shouted, his voice harsh. "If she's out there digging, she's in over her head." Brooklyn had already gone too far. She'd edged closer to the warehouse, her heart hammering as she looked through a dirty window. Inside, the men were unpacking cartons, but it wasn't your typical contraband. There were no narcotics or weapons, only stacks of documents, hard drives, and what appeared to be surveillance equipment. This was not a smuggling organization but rather an intelligence network. Martin was not just playing dirty, he was rewriting the game's rules. Brooklyn's thoughts raced. She needed to get this to Michael, but as she turned to go, a palm clamped over her mouth and a voice whispered in her ear, "You shouldn't be here." Michael and Sonny were already on their way to the docks, driving Sonny's black SUV. Michael's phone remained silent, and each ignored call tightened the knot in his stomach. He'd rejected Brooklyn's warning before, and now she was out there alone, following a reality he should have seen coming. Sonny grasped the steering wheel, his knuckles white. "If Martin's behind this, he's a dead man," he continued, his voice low and threatening. Michael did not respond. He didn't care about vengeance just now. All he wanted was Brooklyn's safety. At the warehouse, Brooklyn battled against her captor's clutches, her mind racing for an escape. She had no idea who he was, but his speech was smooth and professional, too quiet for a typical thug. "You're poking around in things you don't understand," he whispered, releasing his grasp just enough to allow her to breathe. "Walk away and you might live." Brooklyn's gaze sharpened. She was not the sort to walk away, especially when her family was on the line. With a fast twist, she thrust her elbow into his ribs, breaking free and rushing toward the docks. She didn't look back, even though yells rang behind her. Michael and Sonny arrived just as Brooklyn came out of the warehouse, her face pallid but resolute. Michael had already gotten out of the car and was racing towards her. "Are you okay?" he shouted, grasping her shoulders. She nodded, breathless, her eyes bright with urgency. "It's Martin," she exclaimed. "He's not just after ELQ, he's after everything, your family, the business, everything, and he's not alone." Sonny took a step forward, his expression filled with wrath. "Who's he working for?" he inquired. Brooklyn shakes her head. "I'm not sure yet, but whatever it is, it's bigger than us." The three of them stood on the docks, the night settling in around them. Michael's victory, Sonny's confidence, Martin's planning, and Brooklyn's warning had all clashed, and the consequences were only beginning. Port Charles was a powder keg, and the spark had already ignited. The question wasn't who would win, but who would survive.